Hello, everyone. Today, we are going to discuss chapter number 6 in this video, which is understanding consumer and business buyer behavior. So it's another important chapter, a bit larger chapter than previous chapters. And in this chapter, if you have taken a course in psychology, you will realize, excuse me, if you have taken a course in psychology, you will realize that there are quite a few different concepts and theories from psychology that we are going to discuss in this one. And if you haven't taken a course in psychology, then you will also realize that these are new concepts, and there are quite a few of those in this chapter. So it's an important chapter. Now, why should we study consumer behavior? Well, one of the reasons we should do is because that's the essence of marketing. Now, again, go back to chapter number 1, revisit it in your mind. What have we been talking about? We have been talking about marketing concepts, marketing, that a good customer-centric company tries to understand the needs and wants of a group of customers and meet those. Okay, so understanding consumer behavior is important. And individual customers like you and I are not the only customers. There are customers that are businesses. Business organizations purchase things for various purposes. We'll talk about that later in this chapter. And we need to understand their buying behavior as well. Okay, so let's get started with this chapter. So market can be broken into two broad categories: consumer markets and business markets. Consumer market is individuals or household buying goods and services. And the goal is to create marketing program which trigger desired behavior. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow a slightly different sequence of topics from this chapter. This slide here, I'll come back to this, but first I would like to talk to a different concept. Okay, these are on this slide the factors that impact consumer buying behavior. But I think it will be appropriate for you to know what are the stages and steps in the consumer decision making. And then we will come back to these slides and see how these forces impact consumer decision making. Okay, so I'm going to jump to slide number 13. Okay, what is the consumer buying process? So how do we go about making a decision about to purchase something? Well, there are 5 steps. These are need recognition, information search, evaluation of alternatives, purchase decision, and post-purchase behavior. Okay, let's take a look at all these steps one at a time. Before I discuss this, I will also remind you that in chapter number 1, we talked about concepts of need and wants. Okay, so what is a need? A need is a basic sense of deprivation or lack. If you're feeling hungry, there's this need in us. You need new shoes, there's need in us, and you want that fulfilled. You're feeling cold, there's that need in us. So we know what a need is. So how do we recognize the need? Well, the need recognition can be triggered internally or externally. It can come from within us, or it can come from some outside source. It doesn't have to be a particular kind of need. So for instance, if we are hungry, we may say, I'm hungry, I need to eat something. I may just internally recognize the need. But many times what happens, I'm not feeling hungry. And let's say I'm walking on Main Street and I see this sign outside the restaurant, say Patty's or Joe's, and it says, today's special, fish and chips, $6.99. And I will say, I'm not feeling hungry, but this deal looks too good to pass up. And I may just decide to buy or sit there and eat. So the need recognition can be triggered internally or externally. Now, in many cases, what happens when we recognize the need, it's not like a restaurant that you simply go inside, sit and eat. Let's say your computer is working slow and the battery is dying rather quickly. So you think your computer is 7, 8 years old, 5 years old, or something like that, and it is not working as well, and you're worried that it may die anytime, and you start thinking about the computer. How do you go about searching for the information? Well, we need to collect information. What kind of computer we need to purchase, when, where, how, which brand, what is the criteria, what brand name, how much money am I going to spend, what features, attributes the laptop should have. So information search is a very important part of our buying process that we engage in. So the first one is personal sources. And the personal source is we always start with ourselves. When I start thinking about buying a computer, my first thoughts go to the experience of my own computer ownership. Well, earlier I used to have Lenovo, now I have Apple, and right away my thought would be that if I purchase a new computer, it is going to be an Apple computer. And then I would say, what has been my experience with Apple computers? Well, I would say, pretty good. They work well, they look good, they are expensive, but their warranty is good, so I'm fine. Now imagine if I did not have any computer, I would rely on many outside sources of information, public sources, okay? So there are commercial sources too that we rely on. I may go to a company's website, I can go to third parties like YouTube bloggers who evaluate different products, various other websites like PC Magazine. They evaluate new technology, new products as to how well they function and all. So there are personal sources, commercial sources, and public sources like YouTube, PC Magazine, and experiential sources. That's what my experience has been. So there are a lot of different sources. Now, it doesn't mean if you select one, you cannot select the other. Depending upon the kind of product we are purchasing, we may rely on a combination of these sources, okay? Evaluation of alternative. Well, it depends on the buying situation. If I'm buying toothpaste, I may get some very quick piece of information, what is the price, and if the company has made any change to the composition of toothpaste. Other than that, it will be simple. Based on my previous experience and what is on sale, I may quickly purchase something. But when it comes to purchasing a laptop, there will be serious evaluation of alternatives. There will be a lot more information search. And then it comes to purchase decision, right? So purchase decision is not something very simple either, that we decide to purchase a computer. There are many other factors that play into this. Let's say I decide to purchase Apple computer. The thoughts that come to my mind are, what kind of attributes I'm looking for? Should I purchase it from online or store? Or should I, buy it as standard product or customize? Well, that would be an evaluation of alternative. But when it comes to purchase decision, I'm telling you this particular thing about attributes because if I want to purchase a computer from Apple Store, at least in the Halifax store, they keep very basic configuration of computers. So you don't have many choices. If I want something customized, then it will have to be ordered online and will be delivered however I wish. Okay, so there are purchase decisions. Then are you going to use cash, credit card? What kind of payments certain stores accept? So many times what happens is we pick and choose a store that is more suitable for the kind of payment we want to make. Um, Now, if you go to Costco, Costco doesn't accept any credit card but MasterCard. Okay. And some people will say, if they don't accept it, I only have this credit card. If that were the criteria, they would end up going to a different store. So purchase decision is not simply once you decide. There are a lot of other sub steps there that need to be considered. Now, a very important thing that most of us don't think about, because many times when we think about consumer behavior and marketing, we think about that how do we go and buy something? But equally important to us is the idea of post-purchase behavior. So what is post-purchase behavior? Once you purchase something, you have acquired it. Doesn't mean you have accepted it, right? You may purchase a laptop and may feel not terribly happy with this and take it back and return it after a few days. So marketers need to understand that too. What kind of customers purchase things and bring them back? What kind of customers purchase things and are happy and come back to purchase the same thing again, right? And in many cases, marketers want to know how you use the product, how long you used it for what purposes did you use your product, what was your experience with the product, how long are you going to use the product, what is the useful lifespan of the product, and how are you going to discard the product? So if you go to Apple's website, they many times encourage you to purchase the newest version of the product. And on their website, they clearly state you can save up to a certain amount of dollars if you trade in your iPhone, your iPad, or MacBook, right? So all these things are very important for marketers too. And that takes us back to consumer loyalty and customer relationship management. And as I promised you in chapter number 1, we will get back to those things. The one interesting concept here is that of cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance is that major purchases result in cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is that once you purchase a product, you have second thoughts about your purchase. You feel a bit torn about that. You feel like, I purchased MacBook Pro 13-inch, I could have purchased 16-inch, or I could have purchased 1 terabyte hard drive, or I could have purchased, rather than silver color to space gray, or I should have purchased a MacBook here, whatever it may be, right? So many purchases induce what we call cognitive dissonance. And marketers need to understand that. And that's a very important thing again. Now, people should feel satisfied, delighted, happy with their purchase, and they should stick to what they have purchased. So companies have various post-purchase marketing activities too. So if you purchase a car, many car companies will promise you and call you a day or two after you have purchased the car because they want to make sure that you know all the features and functions and you're feeling happy about your purchase. Okay? Now, if you were sitting in front of me, face to face, in a classroom setting, I would ask you this question. Do we always follow these steps in this particular sequence from 1 to 5? The answer is no. If you're looking to purchase, say, milk, toothpaste, bread, what you do is name recognition, quick information search, you're done. You're not going to sit before a laptop and do search on what kind of toothpaste, something. Yes, there are situations when you have to purchase a toothpaste and you will want to collect some information, which is the best toothpaste for teeth whitening or sensitive teeth or something like that, right? But in general, when it comes to basic products or habitual products that we purchase and consume frequently, we do not engage in extensive decision-making process. We only engage in extensive decision-making process when we are purchasing something which is of high involvement. We'll talk about the concept of high involvement next, okay? So many times what we do is need recognition, we jump simply to purchase, we are done. Many other cases, we start with need recognition, go through all that, go to the store, don't feel terribly happy. We go back to the need recognition. If you're purchasing a house, you would go through these steps over and over. Okay? So what is the consumer involvement or the concept of involvement? Where is involvement in this? Okay, I don't see, but it should be in the textbook, not in this slide. The involvement is the individuals, of course you will say involvement, but consumers' relevance, importance to the purchased product and purchase situation. The more important a decision is to you, the higher the chances that you will go through all these 5 steps carefully. I have caught myself many times engaging in that. There are times I need something, I go and purchase it without thinking much. But the same product in different situation is purchased with a lot more consideration. One would say, if you wanted to drink some wine at home, what would you do? Let's say you don't have any wine at home, you'll go to the liquor store, and with limited browsing, you would purchase whatever wine you wanted to purchase. There's not much information search evaluation. But imagine if somebody very important were coming to your house for dinner and you really wanted to impress them, right? And you wanted to have wine for them. The same purchase, same decision will become high involvement. And what you will do is you will spend a lot of time, energy, go through that, and then purchase the product. So the level of involvement one has in a purchase situation dictates what kind of time, energy, effort, money you're going to spend on these 5 steps. Okay? Now, I'm going to go back to the first slide. So now we know what are the buyer decision process steps. Okay. Next. Just because you have identified a need, is it good enough for marketers to figure out what customers are looking for? No. Because consumers are influenced by so many different factors and forces that marketers have to understand everything. Now, looking at this particular figure 6.2, you will see there are, on the far right-hand side is the buyer, then next to it is psychological factors, then personal factors, then social factors, and to the far left is our cultural factors. The first two, psychological and personal factors, are the factors that are within us. Okay? Individual. They are largely individual within us. Then the last 2 factors are outside of us in the societies. Therefore, social and cultural factors. If you were to say micro and macro, the first 2 on the right-hand side would be kind of micro factors related to individual, and the last 2 would be called macro factors. Now, the interesting thing is, these factors do not influence like in some straightforward manner to consumers in a particular situation. The complication is that all these factors listed here in 4 categories interact with one another, and they somehow in very complex manner interact with one another and produce the result what we call consumer judgment. Okay, so let's take a look at these factors individually, what they are, and then we can imagine how complicated it is to understand a consumer, because a lot of factors and forces are continuously influencing consumers. So let's start with culture. Very briefly, I mentioned to you culture in chapter number 4. that it is the collective values, belief, and core belief of a group of people. It's culture. Culture gives values to gives meaning to values, and values impact what we purchase or don't purchase, what we do, what we don't do, what we think is right or not right. So in every way, culture influences consumer behavior. So culture, basic trigger of wants and behavior. Whatever you think, whatever you believe in, whatever you feel, if somebody is vegan, vegetarian, they are feeling hungry, they are going to stay away from meat. Their values comes from the culture to practice. So it's deeply entrenched, but when change creates opportunity. So I give you the example of McDonald's wanting to sell beef in India, not easy, cultural factors. Culture is shared value system with groups. Culture is not just culture. Culture has subgroups, and there are subcultures too. So in a big country like Canada, there's no one single culture that shapes the whole country, that dictates the behavior of all Canadians. In any case, many Canadians are first generation immigrants born and raised outside the country. They come here, they bring their own cultural values. But even within Canada, people who are born and raised in this country from maybe the same ethnic group have different subcultures. So people in Atlantic Canada are very different from people in, say, Quebec, Ontario, and Western Canada. So culture has subcultures. And then what we also have, microcultures, like very, very small cultures. So Wolfville would be a small group of people, but people in Wolfville stand out. They're quite different from people in surrounding areas, okay? So we have to understand that too. So culture is one thing. Within culture, there are small groups, and within subcultures, there are micro groups that marketers need to understand. The other interesting concept is that of social classes, that society is divided based on a combination of factors. It's an invisible hierarchy of people in a country, in a society, based on their income, occupation, wealth, and it says other variables. These other variables happen to be your race, your religion, and your ethnicity. All these things taken together, people are ranked into unspoken, invisible kind of hierarchy that top people, some people, rich 1% based on some income, their postal code, what kind of house they have, where they live, they are looking for different kind of products. As unpleasant as it is, this is a study of the society, that how society divides people into different groups. And as you might have seen, there's a lot of discussion, debate, and backlash these days about the hierarchy in society. So it is more important for companies to consider and reflect on these kind of marketing programs that divide people into different levels and hierarchies. So these are the cultural factors. And then we have social factors. As somebody said, human beings are social animals, which means we do things for ourselves, but we do things to show to others who we are, what we are, and we are influenced by others as well. Okay? We are not lone wolves. We do things, we try to do things where we are influencing others and being influenced by others as well. So some of the key concepts here are reference group. A reference group is a group of people you look to. They act as reference to you. You look up to them and you want to imitate their behavior. You want to, in many cases, act and behave like them, because whatever they do, the kind of clothes they purchase, the kind of food they eat, you want to mimic them, you want to follow them. So what many of these celebrities do, athletes do, they serve as reference group or opinion leaders to many consumers. But one, and by the way, reference group may not be closer to you. Your favorite celebrity movie star might be living in LA, but you're here in Nova Scotia. The closest social group that we deal with frequently is family and friends. Family and friends can be our reference groups too. Okay, our opinion leaders or role models, and we look up to them what to purchase and how to consume different things. So family is there, friends are there, and then roles and status. Individuals play multiple roles. So for instance, I am father, I am son, I'm a brother, but I'm also a professor, I'm also a friend. So there are different expectations. So role is expected activities. There are different expectations from me and my expectations from others. In different situations, different roles, what I will do, what I want to. Here at home, I'm sitting making this video with collarless t-shirt. But if I were to go to some work meeting, probably I would not do that because my role is different. I'm expected to behave differently. So we have those roles where expectations are quite different, and consumers tend to behave differently in different situations. The example I gave you about wine. In one situation, I might be drinking at home with family, and then my role changes if somebody very important visits me and I want to offer them wine. It changes. It's a social variable that will change my consumer activity. And then status, esteem given to role by society. So many times I've heard this particular thing, you will be surprised, sometimes from outsiders. And sometimes my mother once or twice told me in summer months, I was teaching a summer course, we went to teach in shorts. And she pointed out, son, you are a professor. You should not go to school in shorts. Now, I told her this is okay in this country and culture, but she felt that given my role and status, I should behave appropriately. Okay, so social factors, they influence consumption a lot. Then personal factors like demographics, age and life cycle, which change the consumption of products, services, food, and everything based on how we age grow. There are different products we purchase, different things. Occupation, as I mentioned to you a few minutes ago, some products we consume are occupation specific. If somebody is running a farm, they are not going to be interested in wearing certain kind of clothes to work. You get the idea. Then economic situation, personal finance is affected. We know it. It's a very basic thing. But sometimes it's not about the economic factors of individual, but the desire to portray oneself in a particular manner shapes and affects what they are going to purchase. Lifestyle. Different lifestyles require different kind of consumption. If somebody's outgoing, nature loving, their lifestyle is based on spending time outdoors, they're going to purchase and consume things that are going to be totally different from somebody who wants to stay inside or living a urban life, very, different lifestyles. So the product consumption, money, time, energy spent will be very different. And then comes personality and self-concept. Personality is one's psychological makeup, and self-concept is how one views oneself. Okay? Now, these are powerful things because what happens is how we see ourselves, if we are happy with that or not, and we want to come across something different, somebody different, we will consume things differently. Silly but funny example, a couple of times I have noticed again myself, I went to eat with my colleagues and let's say we were ordering sandwich and they ask you, what kind of bread would you like? Would you like white bread or the whole wheat bread? And I like maybe white bread. I wanted to portray myself as somebody who's very health conscious. So somebody would say, I would have whole wheat bread. They are saying it before others because their self-concept, there's one thing about them, and then there is something about they want to portray to others. So my consumption should say and show that I'm very health conscious and I'm eating whole wheat bread. Okay, so all these personal factors do influence consumer behavior. And then comes psychological factors, motivation. So what is need recognition? Go back to chapter 1, talk about the definition of needs and wants. It's a gap between where you are and where you would like to be. That gap is what we call motivation. The stronger the gap, the bigger the gap, more motivated you are. If you want to be one thing and you're trying to, let's say, be an athlete, run 20 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 5 kilometers, the more you want to do it, you will be motivated. Perception is how you perceive something, how you receive information, and how you go about interpreting and assigning meaning to something. Branding. What does a brand mean to you? Many people think Apple is a great brand. Others think it is just a blind group of blind followers buying this. Many people think that a product manufactured in a certain country is of good quality, and then some people would think it is not of good quality. Then some people would say wine produced in France is great, and some would say cheese coming from Italy is great. Perception, very powerful thing. Learning. What is learning? Learning is behavioral and knowledge change in us. So we need to understand how people learn in marketing, because companies introduce new products, new services, new product features that function differently, and people need to learn. So marketers are always curious to know how people learn, because their new products, new features might require some learning change on the part of consumers. And then beliefs and attitude, personal thoughts on subjects and their evaluation. Sugar is good, chocolate is good, caffeine is bad. So these are our sometimes personal beliefs that make us purchase or not purchase something. Eating too much wheat is good, some would say, and some would say eating too much carb is bad. Beliefs and attitude. Now, having gone through the steps of the decision making and all these big factors, think they all interact with one another and they influence with one another the way we as individuals go about making purchase decisions. Okay, this is one concept of marketing. When we talk, concept of motivation, not marketing. Related to motivation, we know that motivations are very important, which is like asking, what makes you purchase something? Motivation. What motivated you to do it? What motivated you to become a vegan? What motivated you to start riding a bicycle? What motivated you to start exercise? What motivated you to do something, right? So we need to understand motivation, and related to the previous slide, motivation, there are a lot of different kinds of motivations. But at the same time, some motivations are more basic than others. So Maslow's hierarchy, Abraham Maslow was the person who identified different types of motivation. He categorized them. And not only he categorized them, he put these motivations in a rank order. So according to this particular hierarchy of motivations, that people try to fulfill the basic needs first, and then they try to meet the next level of motivations as the basic needs are fulfilled. Now, it never happens that your basic needs are completely fulfilled, then you go to the next. But more or less, your basic needs are met, then you go to safety, then social, etc., etc. Okay, so this is an interesting insight when it comes to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So please go through some of these slides, and I'm going to skip these slides that we discussed earlier. Now, here's a special case of buyer process. Buyer decision process, which is the adoption of new technologies. Okay. We've been studying consumer buying process for things that people know exist. But many times what companies do is they have to introduce a new product or new service, likes of which did not exist before. It is something totally new, so companies have to periodically introduce new product. So how do companies go about doing that? Well, first, what companies need to do is create awareness for the product or service they have introduced. Awareness alone is not interest and is not adequate. Interest needs to be created. Then it's evaluation. And then what we do is trial and adoption, which means trial is that encourage people to try the product they're interested in, new product, try it on a limited basis. So give some kind of discount, or people have these calls, I get them all the time from Bell. It is a new fiber op or this or that. It's free for next 30, 60, 90 days. Try it for a few days. If you don't like it, you return it. But if you love it, continue it. And then if you like it, then comes adoption, which means you have accepted it, you have adopted it. Now, how the adoption process works in a society, that's another very interesting thing that we marketers want to know. You must have wondered many times why some videos go viral, why some books become so famous, why some movies become so popular. That is the adoption process. Certain things get adopted and accepted in the market and society very quickly and rapidly. So marketers and sociologists have been studying population characteristics. What makes some people purchase, adopt certain things faster than others? So what they have done is they have divided the population into various groups in terms of their innovativeness. So according to them, about 2.5% of the population in general, or what this is the normal distribution curve, 2.5% of the population is innovators, which means everything new that comes out in the market, they adopt it. They're the first ones to do it. And then there are some people who are a bit cautious, and they are 13.5%, large chunk. They are early adopters. They're not the top, like Tesla cars. Who is buying electric cars right now? Mostly people who are innovators and maybe a bit early adopters. Has Tesla become a mainstream car yet? No. That will happen when people from early adopters, early majority and late majority jump in the market and start buying it. So first innovators, then early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. And laggards happens to be a group of people who due to various reasons, due to their social or economic factors, are not interested in getting that. So for instance, everyone has a smartphone these days, right? But there are some people who don't have it. Either they find the telephone to be very expensive, or they think they don't need it. It just is a toy. And marketers would call them laggards, that they are still not using it. Okay, so this kind of classification is very important for us marketers to know, because it tells us how to go about selling new products, making new products more acceptable in the market. Okay. Is there a process that can speed up the adoption process? Well, these are the 5 characteristics that can speed up the rate of adoption. Relative advantage. So if you introduce a new product, you have to tell me, why should I purchase new product and not stick with the old one I have? So if you're trying to sell me Tesla, you have to convince me what is the relative advantage of having a Tesla and not continuing with my old gas-based car. Compatibility. How it aligns with your values, needs, and everything. Is the new product compatible with you? So let's say you don't use Apple, and if somebody tells you use Apple, first thing you will say, what is the relative advantage? Second, you will say, is it compatible with the programs you run? Is it compatible with the new software, everything that you will have to run it on? Now, it is not about a new product. Apple has been around for a long time, but these are the same kind of questions. So Tesla, how is it compatible? I drive to Halifax every day, for instance. How is it going to save me money? Is it really that much a thing for me to save environment and be part of that movement, that I don't drive a gas-based car and spend a lot more money to drive a Tesla? Compatibility. Complexity, how difficult it is to use. Will I find charging stations? Will I be able to understand the product? and then divisibility that leads to trial. Can we make people purchase one part of the whole thing and then next and then next and then next? So there are some products that are very big, and what can happen is companies tell you, try this. It's like a sample. You don't purchase the whole new product, you're given a small sample. You try that. And people say, yeah, I've tried it, good or bad, you make your decision. And then communicability. It should be communicated to people that something new exists, what are its attributes, features, tell it to people. Something that is new, the newness creates uncertainty, uncertainty creates risk, and risk can be overcome by providing information. And information is all about communication. So now what we are going to do is we are going to jump to the business market, why we need to understand business customers. So we know a fair bit about individuals. Most of the focus in this course is on individual customers, okay, not on businesses. Businesses actually are much larger buyer of things. They purchase things in much larger quantity, in much larger dollar value. So what is the difference between business markets and consumer markets? What is a business product? A business product is something which is purchased by an organization to manufacture or facilitate one of their business functions. The product doesn't have to be different. It is just the purpose for which a product has been purchased, right? So a business product is the same thing. Let's say I purchase Apple 13-inch for myself, and I use it for my purposes. As an individual, it is a consumer product. But when the same product is purchased by Acadia University to give it to its accounting department, for instance, it becomes a business product. The difference is how it was purchased. Product is the same. But in many cases, the products are different too. So the printer I purchase at home is going to be much lighter, simpler, smaller version of the printer that Acadia would purchase for its School of Business. Okay, so we have to keep those things in mind. So what are the differences between business and consumer markets? It's about market structure and demand. So business buyers are few, but large demand is derived. So I can purchase tires for my car when the tires wear out. But car manufacturing companies will purchase more tires if they're manufacturing a larger number of new cars, and they need tires for their new car. So it's a derived demand, not a direct demand. Nature of the buying unit. I make decision to purchase something. I go through all 5 steps: need recognition, information search, evaluation, purchase, and post-purchase. But let's say if Acadia, I wanted to purchase a new chair for myself for my office. What will happen? I may think I need a new chair. I may go to the department and say I need a new chair. Somebody might do the information search, say, Harish, here, we purchase only things from this company. Here's the catalog. My order goes to purchasing department. They are the buyers, and it comes back and I use the product. So there are different parties. So the 5 steps of consumer buying decision that we discussed earlier, an individual is undertaking pretty much all the steps by themselves. In a business situation, it is multiple people responsible for different steps and stages of the buying process. It becomes a lot more complicated. It has implication. How do these people should go and target these different parties for businesses to purchase the product? And then the type of decisions, business decisions tend to be more complex, formal. There isn't much room for emotions. So if I'm buying a car, I may say, hey, I just want the silver car, even though silver paint is $500 more expensive, but I'm going to buy it. Businesses don't do that. They say, okay, if we want a car, we are going to see everything else being equal, the cheapest possible car. So business buying behavior, pretty much like the slide I showed you earlier, 6.2. These are some factors: product, place, price, promotion, and other economic, technological, external factors. And then there's a buying unit group. Businesses, many times when they purchase something, they constitute a committee and share their expertise and then buy something. So if Acadia is going to buy 300 computers. It's not going to be somebody from one office picks up the phone and calls and says, send us 3 computers. It will be based on the buying decision process, the buying center. A committee will be constituted that talks about what are the needs of different professors, different departments, what software, what hardware specification, and then you end up buying something. It's a much more complex and formal decision. So I didn't see the slide, but I should tell you, when it comes to consumer decisions, there are of 3 kinds. Routine or habitual decision, things we purchase on day-to-day basis, toothpaste, bread, etc. I mentioned to you. Then there are extended decisions. If you're purchasing something very expensive that you're going to buy very few times in your lifetime, like a car or a house, you spend a lot of time, money, involvement level is high. You go through all 5 steps of decision-making process very, very thoroughly. And then in between habitual and extended decision is limited decision. Pretty much like that, there is straight rebuy, habitual decision. You go and purchase things just like that. New task, like extended decision, limited purchase, modified rebuy. And system solution is another component in the buying process of businesses. A system solution is that many times businesses will ask, organizations will ask some party to buy everything. So let's say if Halifax City Council decided they wanted a new airport, City Council is not going to go to various contractors, carpenters, and elevator companies, runway manufacturers, building manufacturers, restaurant. They will contact one company and say, sell us everything, system sell, okay? So that is the other buying situation. So in the business buying center, participants come from all different relevant parties, and size and makeup varies depending upon what a business is buying. So as I said, if Acadia were purchasing new computer for everyone, it would have to represent all departments. But if Acadia were buying a few, printers, then it would be rather limited decision. So what are some of the major influences? Like Exhibit 6.2, once again, you can go through these. These are the major factors. Okay, so that is basically chapter number 6. So what are the steps in their buying process? We had 5. So here is problem recognition, general need description, product specification, supplier search, proposal solicitation, supplier selection, order, performance. So problem recognition, as I said, could come from one department, and the general description will be prepared. Then product is specified that Acadia needs such and such kind of computer. And then supplier search will begin. And nobody from Acadia, in order to buy computers, would go to Apple Store in Halifax. The corporate representative will be contacted from Apple, from other computer companies, and they will be asked to submit proposal for, say, 250 different laptops, and they will prepare that, and they will come. It happens when you're selling such a large number of things. They give you discounts. They come make a presentation that Apple can do this, Lenovo can do this, and people from Dell will come and make their case, and that leads to the supplier selection. And then order is specified, we'll need 50 this time, 50 this time, or all 250 at the same time. You have to come and train the employees, and then the product is purchased and performance review is undertaken. So it's a bit more complex, but in a different way than our individual purchases. And e-procurement and online purchases, just leave it out, company buying sites and everything. And that's the chapter, really. Quite a bigger chapter than other chapters, but a lot of important concepts, and I hope you find them interesting too. So take a look at this chapter slides, go through this video. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you have gone through that, and ask me questions, okay? So That's chapter number 6. And let's talk about this when we get together in the virtual class. And you guys have a wonderful time. Stay safe. Okay. Have a good one. Bye bye.